On May 17th, I started traveling solo across the United States on my Africa Twin in order to ride the Lincoln Highway westbound from New York City to San Francisco. These are my travels. After a good night's sleep at Elkhart, I continued my ride on the Lincoln Highway. I rode west through Mishawaka, probably didn't get that right, and South Bend. While in South Bend, I passed by the Great American Race lunch stop. The Great American Race, now called the Great Race, is a pace rally where antique cars compete to complete the route, not as the fastest, but as the team or car closest to a time determined by the organizers. After leaving South Bend, I traveled through New Carlisle and Porte, where I stopped at a Lincoln Highway kiosk, before continuing to Dyer, where the Lincoln Highway crosses into its sixth state, Illinois. After crossing into Illinois, I rode up to Tinley Park to replace my Cena 10C Pro with a new 10C Evo. I had been having problems with it for a few days, probably due to my crash in New Jersey, but I could usually fix the issue with the old tried and true turn it on, wait 10 seconds, turn it off trick. Not this time. Mid-morning, the unit died, and there was nothing I could do to get it restarted. So I stopped and made a call to the nearest cycle gear. They had what I wanted, and I made the trip. It was only about 7.5 miles out of my way, or 15 miles round trip. Chip at Cycle Gear was super helpful, allowing me to switch the units in the store myself and help with anything I needed. Back on the Lincoln Highway, I rode over a Seedling mile and crossed Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois, before stopping for the night in Aurora. It was a relaxing 5.5-hour ride that covered 177 miles of the Lincoln Highway. I am in Porte, Indiana, at a Lincoln Highway kiosk. This is a typical Lincoln Highway gazebo or sign. Almost all of them usually cover the history of the highway with pictures of some of the founders, Carl Fisher, Henry Joy, both of whom I've talked about before. In this case, Frank Seedling from the Goodyear Tire Company. There's also usually a map of the route, pictures of the early highway, normally the same ones with lots of mud, because who doesn't like looking at old cars stuck in the mud, and they usually have a timeline. The backside is typically highlights from the local involvement in the highway history and some of the local sites, both historical and current. Bob's Barbecue. There might also be a local poet, artist, or scholar in the spotlight they have information on, but essentially it's a Reader's Digest version of the local contribution. The bottom line is, most of the kiosks are the same, with little variations here and there. The part that I'm impressed with is that the community always seems to keep the kiosks well maintained. It's impressive community spirit. This right here is back there. This is an old section of Lincoln Highway. You can see it's narrow. This is the way it used to be. Now they've put Route 30 over about 200 yards to the left of here. See it up ahead actually as we get closer to it. Jennie Ray's restaurant coming up here on the right. It used to be Bob's Barbecue. There it is. Jennie Ray's restaurant. Used to be Bob's Barbecue. 1927. 1927 is when this building, barbecue, was established. All right, we are coming up to a point in Lincoln Highway where it crosses Route 66. In Joliet, Illinois. Crossing Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois in about 1 block. So Route 66 goes this way. Lincoln Highway goes this way. Lincoln Highway was in existence in 1913, Route 66, 1926. 13 years earlier. Interesting bridge. Okie dokie. I hate these bridges. Guess they get squirrely, but that was good. Burns Funeral Home and Crematorium. That's fine. Coming up to a Seedling Mile. Seedling Mile is where the Lincoln Highway Association donated or gave money to an area, and the area was supposed to match that money. And what they did was make a Seedling Mile, a mile of paved road, because when they first opened the Lincoln Highway, or they first proposed it, got a train coming here. That's cool. When they first proposed the Lincoln Highway, most of the roads weren't paved. They were unpaved. So, train. I don't know why I'm in this lane by myself. So anyways, this is the start of a Seedling Mile. And they would put down a mile of pavement, and the idea was that the local area would match that mile and pave for others. Plus, people would notice how good the road is when it's paved, as opposed to dirt or mud or gravel or sand or whatever they have. So we are on a Seedling Mile right here. Now, it's probably been paved over several times, but I had a good night's sleep in Aurora, Illinois. Got up the next morning, had breakfast in the hotel, packed up the bike, and started my ride to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was a bright, sunny day, and I rode 219 miles in 5 hours and 15 minutes as I passed through small communities such as Geneva, DeKalb, Rochelle, and Sterling, Illinois. I made it to Cedar Rapids, where I stopped and spent the night. I also took a 0 day the next day to skip the heavy rainstorms that were in the area and passing through. I ran a couple of errands, and I got some rest. As I stated in past videos, the idea of the Lincoln Highway was created in 1912 by Carl Fisher, who successfully turned swampland into Miami Beach and built the Indianapolis Speedway. His idea was to create a highway that stretched from Times Square in New York City and ended in Lincoln Park, which is now Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Originally he called it the Rock Highway, but for marketing reasons, it was later named the Lincoln Highway. It was cobbled together using existing roads through local towns and cities, but Fisher's idea was to convert the highway to concrete. To do so, he created Seedling miles. Seedling miles were a mile of the Lincoln Highway that was designed to handle not just traffic in 1914, but for at least another 20 years. The road had a right-of-way of 110 feet wide and a concrete roadbed 40 feet wide, 10 inches thick, and capable of supporting more than 4 tons per wheel on each vehicle. It also had curves with guardrails at embankments and a minimum radius of 1,000 feet, which were banked for a vehicle traveling at 35 miles per hour. There were pedestrian footpaths, we would call them sidewalks today, and the road had no grade crossings or advertising signs. No ads? Seriously? That would be a change from today. While the Seedling miles showed the nation what could be done, they were not strung together in one long continuous highway. In 1919, the U.S. Army drove a convoy from Washington, D.C. to Gettysburg, where it joined the Lincoln Highway and continued to San Francisco. It struggled a lot on the way, with bridges failing and the vehicles getting stuck in the mud. As a lieutenant colonel in that convoy, Dwight D. Eisenhower realized the need to move military assets around the country and was so impressed by the German Autobahn system during World War II that he put the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 into place that resulted in the interstate highway system. Ironically, that act was what put the Lincoln Highway out of commission for once and for all. The nation went from a named highway system to one with numbers. Today, the Lincoln Highway follows US 30 from New York to western Wyoming, US 530 through some of Wyoming and Utah, US 40 through Utah and California, and US 50 through Nevada. On September 1st, 1928, at 1 p.m., Boy Scouts across the nation placed Lincoln Highway markers about every mile along the highway. And that is the problem with riding the Lincoln Highway today. There just isn't much to see. There are a few markers remaining, a few kiosks and small information boards in some of the towns, and a lot of the Midwestern towns celebrate the highway by placing placards along the route. But there's no real thing to stop and visit. The lack of sites to stop at, combined with the idea that the road being a major transportation corridor, making it very straight in a lot of the sections, does not make an exciting road to ride on. Don't get me wrong, I love traveling through small towns and villages as I made my way west. But the days basically consisted of riding for a few hundred miles, stopping for gas, food, and maybe a sign or a kiosk, but it just wasn't super exciting. It was historic, though. I realized that I was traveling on a series of roads that helped shape our nation and was instrumental in the design of our modern roads and highway system today. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, be great, do good, go out and explore.